Mhm. Hello, good morning, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well today. This is Amy Kathleen Lee from Dancing with Ed, and today we're going to be doing another Share My Story interview. Today we are very blessed to have Libby Parker as our guest. She is a registered dietitian, a performer. She's very many things, and she's a very good friend of mine. So I'm looking forward to having this conversation with her. She's going to be sharing a lot of knowledge with you today. You're going to learn a lot about resources. We're going to talk a little bit about mental health. So without further ado, let's jump right in and bring in Libby. Here we go.
Hey,
Hello, Libby. How you doing?
good. It's nice to see your face. It's been so long.
I know. I miss being able to meet up with you for coffee.
I know, we used to
Living in the
live
same
like
town.
down the street from each other for a while.
I know. So how long has it been now since we've known each other? Probably
Gosh.
2015?
Yeah, somewhere around there. When did Dancing with Ed start? 'Cause I think it was like year two is when I found you.
Yeah, so let's see, I founded it in 2013 and then I started
Probably
forming the
2015.
board 14, 15. Yeah. So
Yeah, probably around
it was a
15.
while.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for deciding to do this. I know a lot of people are going to benefit from this conversation, not only from what you do professionally, because I think what you do is so needed and so valuable. Let me get my top of my head wasn't showing. But also your personal experience. A lot of people connect through stories and they learn. We feel less alone, and we have a little bit more hope. So today I'm hoping like the next hour or so we'll be able to pick your brain, learn from you, and just get a little inspiration. So do you want to start off by telling us like where you're from, what you do, just that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm also going to just put the disclaimer out there for everyone. So I am on hopefully the tail end of COVID right now. So I might be a little in and out mentally,
I think
but
you're doing great so far.
feeling better than the last couple of days. So
Okay.
just in case things kind of take a nosedive.
You're
I
such
don't
a
know.
performer. You're such a
I
performer.
am.
You're like, yeah, I'm sick.
Well, so I guess fun fact, I don't know if it's fun fact, but I was supposed to be in a show this last weekend to just like, because this is for the performing arts, I was going to be in the musical Carousel with Opera Slow. And if anyone local knows about this, like half the cast ended up getting COVID within the like 4 days leading up to opening.
Ugh.
And 24 hours before we opened, I went from ensemble to a lead role because I think we just ran out of people. And then 4 hours
Yeah.
to curtain, I tested positive for COVID. And by that point, by that morning, enough people had tested positive that they had to just cancel the whole show.
Oh
So
my goodness.
we made it all the way to the morning of the performance. And then it got canceled and we never got to like actually perform. But it was a
Man.
beautiful show. It was a beautiful experience. So I'm really thankful, even though I got the Rona from it, that I
The
got that
Rona. Well, and
experience.
what a way to stay positive and just be like, you know what, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I read your post about your experience. You were thanking the people that you've met, the
Yeah.
connections that you made. And that, if we can't make it onto the stage, at least we can be part of the theater
Hmm.
environment. You missed that for a while,
Yeah.
didn't you?
Yeah. Hey, oh my gosh, it's been 2 years. Well,
Yeah.
the last full production I did was in 2019 with the same company, fall 2019.
Well,
So it's been 2.5 years, I think. Um, and it was so crazy. Like I got to be on this huge stage. I got to rehearse with a live orchestra. Um, I particularly commend the costumers because as people were like getting, going out with COVID and like having to like reset people, like they completely refit me in a costume for someone a very different size from me overnight, like during a rehearsal. Basically, like they
oh
came
my
in, they
gosh.
pinned me up in this thing, like we had to put suspenders on this super heavy skirt because it was so heavy and big, and they were like taking it in and it was like still falling down. So like we put suspenders on under everything so like I could hold it up.
Wow.
And they did this beautiful tailoring, and then I didn't get to go up. I'm
All
like,
of that.
those the backstage people. That's who we need to be clapping for.
Oh my gosh. Couldn't do it without him.
Yeah. Anyway, we got totally off track there.
That's okay. I love talking about
I had a
performing.
theater experience
So
recently,
where
and I
you
was so happy.
so where do you come from? What do you
Yeah, so where do I
Yeah.
come from? I'm an alien. No. I I'm originally from Minnesota. And yes, this is me and Amy. We go way back. So I'm originally from a small town in Minnesota. And after college, so I did my bachelor's in nutrition between schools in Wisconsin and Minnesota, got my bachelor's in nutrition, and then moved out to San Luis Obispo, California for my dietetic internship. I'm now a registered dietitian. So that was kind of my formative years was in the north.
Yeah. Where it's cold? Where it's
Yes,
cold and they actually have
cold
snow?
or hot. Yeah.
Cold or hot. It's like there's nothing in
Yes.
between. So,
Yeah, pretty much.
we've known each other. We've known each other for a while. You were a part of Dancing with Ed, a huge part of Dancing with Ed, which I am eternally grateful for your support and helping get that going. But you have you've been a dancer a long time. You've maybe seen some of these interviews. What made you want to do this?
I wanted to tell a story that I don't think has really been told before. We're going to get into it more, but basically the story that I'm going to be telling today is as not only a performer who has struggled with their own eating disorder and recovered from it, but an eating disorder professional and dietitian, getting kind of stuck in diet culture during a show. I don't think that story has really been told. I mean, there's not very many dietitians, or I would guess professionals in this type of industry that are still performing. But how even when you know better, even when you're doing really well, it's still so, diet culture is still so pervasive that we can kind of get pulled in even if we don't go all the way. And I think it's important to say, like, this is a thing. This is, I don't know if I want to say normal, but like we're human. Like we still, what is the word I'm trying to find? We're still tempted by the draw of diet culture and wanting to fit in and all the things that kind of come along with that. So we'll get into it more in the story, but I think that's why I wanted to share it, because I hadn't heard a story like this.
Yeah. And I'm glad that this is what this is about, because I think when we share them, people are like, oh my gosh, me too. Like, so I'm not the only one who has come this far and is still like, oh, I kind of, like, let's just do it, so let's take us all the way back. When did you start dancing? What kind of dance did you do? That kind of thing.
Yeah. So I started dancing when I was 3. My mom had been a dancer, not professionally, but for fun, from her 20s on. And so she wanted to make sure I got into dance. When I was around 10, she had enough knee issues that she wasn't able to keep going anymore. But for a few years, we both danced at the same studio, and she was, the helper in my class and stuff. So it was something that we got to bond over. And, like the toddler classes are just kind of whatever. Like my toddler is in dance right now, and it's just kind of like movement.
Oh, yes.
But yeah.
Yes.
But then, for up until I was 13, I did, tap, jazz, ballet, lyrical, just the combo classes that everyone does. And then around the time I was 12, 13, I was kind of feeling too cool for it and didn't want to do it anymore. So took a couple of years off. I was really into horses. So I was like, my whole physical activity shifted to horses. And then when I was about 16, I was missing dance, but I was never going to be like the bunhead type. And I was like, I don't want to go back into ballet. And I didn't like that teacher very much. So my studio was offering beginning hip hop and breakdancing. Tried that for about 3 months. I was way too white for that. And I know, like, there's a lot of white people that do it very well. I was not one of them.
You're not one of those white people.
Was not, no,
That's okay.
nothing about that looked good. It was fun. And I think it kind of like got the creative juices going again, but that ended very quickly. But then my studio started offering ballroom classes. And that is, I think, the thing that really stuck with me. So I got into ballroom, and I like to say my first love is East Coast swing. Like, that is the dance that really became a huge part of my life, especially going into high school and college. I was swing dancer all the time. I was doing swing, ballroom, Latin, salsa. So through college, I was doing all the social dances. At my first college, there wasn't any dance clubs other than like dance team, you know, like for not football games, but like that kind of stuff. And that wasn't my type. So I started the swing dance club, and my dance partner and I basically taught anyone who would show up moves. We did a lot of the lifts and aerials. That was like my specialty through college. Also, while I was in the midst of my eating disorder and underweight. So people liked throwing me around. And then when I went on to my next college, I did some competitive Lindy Hop there and worked my way up to being president of the Salsa Dance Club at a very large university. It's really interesting. I haven't gotten to talk about this in a long time, but I remember I went from this very tiny college in rural Wisconsin, where it's like, of course I'm going to be like the dancer at school because there isn't anyone else. And that was very easy. And then I went to this ginormous college of, I want to say it was like, oh my gosh, like 60,000 students in a like 6 million population town. Like, I went to the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. So living in Minneapolis, huge campus, huge area, like for the clubs, non-students could come in and everything. And I'm thinking, you know, small fish, big pond, no one's ever going to know me as a dancer. I think I actually auditioned for their dance program, but it was like a modern, and I don't do that. So I didn't get in, didn't really care. But making it up to president of the salsa club by the end of my, you know, by my last year there, and people really knowing me as a dancer, that, you know, has been such a part of my identity, I think, for a good chunk of my life.
Yeah. Of course, I forgot to turn off the ringer. Hello. I don't know who that is.
So yeah, that was, so the social dance really carried me through to my move out here. When I moved to California, the first group of people I knew I needed to find was a salsa dance club through the local university, Cal Poly, knowing that I would have dancers and get to go out and dance. And so that was, you know, kind of that first year that I was here, I was really involved with them. And then, you know, getting married and having work, and
right.
You just need to take that off the hook.
Yeah, well, it's my mom's. I put it on mute. I'm sitting in my mom's office, and apparently don't know anything. So, you moved, and you were able to find other people that you could dance with.
Yeah, so that was huge for me. And then just kind of continuing on that thread. So got married and got into work, and wasn't able to stay out as late anymore, and didn't get to go dancing as often as I wanted. But once I had a little more of a set schedule in my life, I started auditioning for shows again, because musical theater is really my thing. Like, give me a flashy tap number and sequence, and I'm happy. Like, that's my thing. So I got in 2014, and this is what we're going to be talking about. I got into my first show out here, which got me back into studio dance. Through that show, we'll talk about the experience in a minute, but it got me back into actually taking ballet lessons for the first time in, I want to say, like 16 years or something. I don't even remember. Like, I think I quit ballet when I was 13. I think I took a year or two when I was like 16 to 18, because I was in pre-point at some point. I never got on point at that point. And then when I was 24, I started taking studio classes again. And then, just fun fact, I actually got up on point when I was 30. So it's never too late.
Ooh, never too late. I'm curious. So you during was it your teen years that you were struggling with body image, disordered eating? Is that about the right time?
Yeah, I would say high school is when I started being more aware of body image. Like my childhood through, I'd say middle school, like I was definitely a loner. I was not a popular kid by any means, but I didn't really think about my body at all. That was never a part of it for me. I know I didn't dress like the cool kids, so like that was usually more the shame for me. But
Mm.
I think the body image piece came in end of high school, like more senior year, and then it carried through into college. And college is when I was definitely at the like first 2 years of college is probably my peak of my eating disorder, which never got officially diagnosed, but was definitely a restrictive disorder. I would call it OSFED at this point. Other specified being eating disorders headed towards anorexia is what I was definitely struggling with. Um,
Did
but
dance challenge the body image and eating disorder, or did it help? Like, how did those two go together for you?
I don't think it challenged it. I don't feel like my eating disorder came from dance or being in the mirror or
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the things that you would typically see with dancers. It definitely was more comments from peers and a control issue going into like the unknown of college, which is why I work with a lot of college students now. Um, oh, what was the question? How?
So, well, because I was curious, what was sort of for you the relationship between dance
Yeah,
and your body
that's what it
image
was.
disorder eating? It sounds like
I
you
No, I can
control
answer
and
that better now. It definitely was an overexercise piece of it for me. It was a way to keep moving. I definitely remember at my peak of it, I was dancing almost every day. I wasn't like a exercise person. I didn't get
Mhm.
into exercise or going to the gym until end of college, and I actually became a personal trainer because of that mindset. But it was a way that I was trigger warning, but like I was trying to burn calories and that kind of stuff. So I was rehearsing a lot. I was not fueling my body enough. After we would go out swing dancing or something, sometimes we would go to a restaurant, like we'd go to Applebee's or whatever, like a lot of people do. And everyone would be like ordering the appetizers, and I would get a salad or nothing. And, it was that kind of thing. So it was definitely not that dance caused it, but it was more my means to an end. Because I wasn't, now that I work with eating disorder clients, I was not restricting as hardcore as I would say a lot of people do. I still had a minimum amount that I was making sure I ate. That was not technically enough, but it was still more than I see a lot of people doing. But I was definitely trying to exercise it through dance.
Yeah, and you make a good point, that dance might play a role in someone developing an eating
Mm-hmm.
disorder or disordered eating, but it typically is more of a complex issue than just being in dance, right?
Yeah.
And also, you hit on a really good point with the fact that it wasn't that. Some people would say it's not that bad. I didn't restrict as much as other people, and that sometimes holds people back from seeing that this is unhealthy for me.
Yeah.
And so thank you for bringing that to light, because I think that's an important piece that people might forget, is that again, like, if I'm not that sick, but you knew for
Mm-hmm.
you, so you had enough. Were you aware of that at the time, that you weren't giving yourself what you needed?
Probably on a subconscious level, but I wasn't letting myself go there. So this was the time where, okay, so when I was at probably the very peak of restricting eating disorder, dancing a ton, all of that, I was in, I would say, my second year of college. I hadn't yet switched to the nutrition major, but I was starting to get more awareness of that. And the reason I actually became a nutrition major was because of this disordered obsession with food. So I was, reading all of the diet articles in women's magazines. I was reading all of the, nutrition facts labels on things. I was educating myself, but not knowing what I was actually shooting for. So it kind of became that game of I was tracking all of my calories, I was tracking my weight, but I didn't really know what I was shooting for. I didn't have like I need to be under this amount of calories or I need to be this weight. It was more of a weird learning process. I don't know. I just became obsessed with learning about it, which then led me to become a nutrition major. And then, fast forward, the nutrition major was like the best thing that could have happened to me, which is not always the case for people. I have a lot of nutrition students as clients now. But for me, even through that time, I believe so strongly in science that when the facts kept getting driven into me, like you need this many calories a day to survive, your body does this with food, this is how metabolism works, this is why these different nutrients interact and do these positive things. When you're exercising this much, you need to eat this much. Like sugar's not evil. Like all the things I was learning from a scientific standpoint was probably not the total, but a major, major part of my recovery was educating myself. And unfortunately, that's not the case for a lot of people that I see. I wish it was, but the eating disorder brain tends to throw logic out the window. So maybe I wasn't far gone enough yet. I don't know. Like there was a lot of good factors. I had good social support, all of that. But yeah, when I was deep in it, like I didn't know what I was doing and I didn't have a set goal in mind. It was more just I think it was more like, don't be the person that people will make fun of. It's probably something along those lines.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned this particular story. I asked you about underlying stressors. You had said that when you first moved to California, you wanted to fit in and make friends.
Yeah.
And be part of something. So you were able to audition and get into this show. Tell us what happened from there.
Yeah. And also because I'm in a small town, I'm not going to say the theater company or the show to protect everyone.
And the name is... No.
Yeah. Because despite what happened, it was more how I personally took it and just kind of a generic story. It has nothing to do with the theater company. So right. I just want to throw that disclaimer on all of this.
Very good point.
They probably have no idea that any of this happened backstage. So yeah. So when I was first auditioning, it was, I think, only the second show I auditioned for, and I hadn't done a musical since high school, right? So it had been, let's see, my last show would have been in 2006, and this one was in 2014. So like 10 years, 8 years.
So you said you were 24.
Yeah. So it was.
That's a lot.
Yeah. It was like 8 years since I'd been in a show, and at that time when I was in high school, and the reason I did not go into performing arts in college is I had like no confidence in myself, which was probably a big part of that eating disorder starting. I had very low self-esteem. So for me getting into this show in a big dance role, especially not having done like really studio dance in a long time, I was both shocked and also like, sweet, like, yeah, I'm good, because I had not been auditioning much yet. So I was like, yes, everyone wants me, you know.
That's a good feeling. That's a good feeling.
Great feeling.
Boosted your confidence a little bit?
It did. It so boosted my confidence. And, you know, despite the story I'm going to tell, I had an amazing experience with the show. It was exactly what I needed to restart a lot of passions in my life. It got me back into dance. It got me back into doing theater. It got me back into voice lessons. Like, I don't know what I would be doing today if I hadn't gotten into this show. So I thank it so much for everything and the friends that I met and all of that. But I think to get to the story that we're going to get to today and why it's relevant for your channel here is that diet culture definitely plays a role in musical theater and even community theater, as much as it, maybe not as much, but definitely a big portion as much as other dance styles. So we tend to think of eating disorders being really heavy in ballet, and of course that's true.
Right.
But all the forms of dance and all the forms of performing arts definitely see eating disorders. And so I want to talk about kind of how that falls through in musical theater and community theater, and then kind of I'd also like to take the story to what that's caused me to do since then in my professional life as well. Would you just want me to dive into the story?
Get to it. Yep.
Okay. So, as I was saying, it was a very dance heavy show. I was swinging for 3 of the leads. If you don't know what a swing is, basically we are the cover if someone goes out, kind of like an understudy. So we learn all the routines and roles of the people that we're swinging for. So I was ensemble, so I was in all the ensemble numbers, and then I also learned to cover 3 of the lead roles. So I was dancing a lot. And it felt so good. Oh my gosh, it felt so good. Like our weekend rehearsals, which is, I would say, fairly uncommon for community theater. We were having like 8-hour dance rehearsals that would start with like burpees and stuff to warm up. Like I got in such good shape, and I was fueling myself through this. So make sure you're fueling. The whole rehearsal process was great. Like there was nothing red flaggy about the rehearsal process. Like we were snacking, like we were all having a great time. Like we were rehearsing, we were dancing, we were getting along, all that. We moved into the theater, and I would say probably we had a pretty long run. I think it was about a month of shows, and so it was probably like 5 shows a weekend or so. And I want to say that in total, and I might be wrong, I want to say we ended up doing like 28 performances, which is so fun. And we get into the rehearsal, or into the theater, and we're in like dress rehearsals and getting into our costumes. And I didn't feel particularly bad. Like we were in pretty tight costumes, but like the costumer was great, fit everything to us. I didn't feel I was busting out anything, like all that stuff. And I'm trying to remember how this even happened, because it wasn't like, it didn't feel like a really big deal. It wasn't like people were like, oh, my body, or oh, I look so bad. And like there was no hysterical, like what I would consider like super disordered thinking about bodies, but it was more some of the older actresses, dancers in the company were talking about like, I want to feel my best. I want to look good in these costumes. I just want to be, toned and whatever. My friend has been doing this diet. I'm going to start it. Does anyone want to join in? We're starting a Facebook group so that we're all on it together. And I still don't really know why I caught on to this, because this was not something that everyone did. I would say like maybe 3 or 4 of the women in the show, and it was a pretty big cast, probably joined in on this. And then there was like a group of people outside that were friends of this person. We had like this Facebook group going together, and it was, I want to say like a 6 or 8 week program. So we started this like tech week, maybe first week of shows, and then it continued a little bit after the shows, following this book and diet plan. And I totally got pulled in, and it wasn't that I needed to, not that anyone needs to, but it wasn't that I thought I needed to lose weight or whatever. It was more like this, in terms of diets, it sounded like a healthier or more like inclusive one than some of the other ones. I don't even remember the name of this. Maybe I do. Not important. It wasn't good. But it seemed in hindsight that I really wanted to make more friends and fit in. And this was a way to like get close to people, and especially this older dancer that I really looked up to. And again, in hindsight, it's like I had just become a dietitian. Like I knew diets didn't work. I wasn't feeling bad about my body in particular. Like there's always body image days, right? I still have bad body image days.
That's kind of the natural body journey experience.
Yeah. And at that time, I've gained weight since then, but I would say at that time I was probably at my highest weight at that point. So there probably was a little bit of that in my mind of like, if I'm in these skimpy costumes, like, would it hurt me to lose 5 pounds? Probably not, like there's all that kind of stuff running in my head. So yeah, so there was definitely this diet culture in the rehearsal space that wasn't really overt. It was not a director or someone telling me you need to lose weight. It wasn't like, oh, these costumes don't fit. It wasn't shaming. It wasn't people all going like, oh my God, my body. It was very subtle. Mm-hmm. And I still joined in. And I don't even know where I want to, like, if you have questions, like, I don't even know where I want to go with this story.
No, I think
it was weird.
I like that you're highlighting it wasn't overt, because a lot of times the messages or the underlying pressures are never spoken out loud.
Yeah.
And people allude to things. And I've noticed in diet culture, it usually frames it as, I want to feel better. I want to look good. This is going to be a good thing for me. This is going to add to wherever I'm at right now. But from my experience of being a professional dieter in my past life, it always backfired. It always ended up, destroying my self-esteem, and what I was looking for in connection, I felt more isolated.
Yeah.
And so when did you realize or decide, I don't want to do this anymore?
I would say probably 4 or 5 weeks into the program. So I said it was either a 6 or 8 week, like set kind of meal plan. In the first couple of weeks, I mean, I think with any, like, because I had been a professional dieter too, like the first couple of weeks, you're like, I can do this. Like, I have tons of willpower. And usually they start you off not as hard, and then it gets harder kind of thing. And other people were doing it. So I was like, yeah, I got this. And I don't even think I was weighing myself. I think at that point I knew like that was not a thing for me, but it was more of a, I want to look good in my costume and in life kind of thing. So it was like just trying to stick to it. And it started getting harder. And I was working a job where I would take lunch to the office. And I started feeling kind of awkward about the foods I was bringing. Like, I'm this dietitian, and all I'm eating for lunch is like a protein shake and a banana, and it felt kind of awkward. And I didn't really want people seeing that. And I think that's when it really started getting uncomfy, because at home it was pretty easy to just do what I needed to do. I was usually on my own. But when I had to bring food into work for lunch, and like eating with people, it was like, I don't like this. And so then I started like cheating on the diet, and like, okay, so I'm gonna like move dinner to lunch so that's like a little more normal looking. But then I was never like, the lunch thing never sounded good at dinner. And
well, that kind of sounds a little bit like when we're in our eating disorders and we're flip-flopping meals because of what it looks like around other people.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you trigger it all with that? I mean, was there any, did it kind of bring back any memories from when you struggled, or no?
This far out, it's hard to remember a lot of what went through my brain at that time, because so that was 2014, this was 2022. So
there you go. That answers that question. But the bigger theme that I'm seeing is you were fairly far out or advanced in your recovery. You experienced this. My question is, what inner resource or strength or skill did you have that you think helped you step back out of the diet culture?
Yeah, I think it was probably twofold. Okay. One was my education background of, now I had just been through all of this. I will also say at that time, I hadn't really done therapy for this yet. That was a little bit later to come. But behaviorally, I had been doing really well. So there was still mental aspects of the eating disorder that were still present, which I think is why I was susceptible to this. But again, I had been well nourished at this point. I've been eating really well. I knew the science of it. And so I think as I was following this diet plan, more red flags were coming up and the science was getting to me like, hey, and I was like, I think I was like writing this in the Facebook group, like, hey, people, this seems like it's getting too much. Like, I'm going to do this if anyone else wants to do it too. And like kind of expanding it a little bit more instead of restricting it as much as they were. So I think I was trying to like pull some people a little bit out of it with me while still kind of staying part of the group. And eventually I just had to quit the Facebook group because it got to be too much diet chatter.
Yeah,
And I don't,
can't
and
stand
I think
diet
that
chatter.
was
Gives me the
something where I
heebie-jeebies.
think that like personal, I don't know where that personal strength came, because I think if it had been even like 2 years prior, I would have really gotten stuck in it. So part of me was strong enough to pull myself out of that and realize that there was something going on that could snowball. So I would say it didn't trigger my eating disorder in that it didn't snowball. I started pulling myself out of it before the whole like 6 or 8 week program was done, but I was in it, right? I think the other big piece that unfortunately most people don't have that helped me a lot is at that time I was starting to work with eating disorder clients in private practice. And so I was seeing like not only what I had gone through, what I could potentially be going through if this continued. And every day I was preaching body confidence and that you don't need to diet. You need to eat this much. Don't restrict. Your body is awesome. You are amazing just as you are. And like totally believing this, right? It's when I say this to my clients or to anyone, like I fully believe this. There's no acting. Like I may be an actress on stage, but when I'm talking to you about your body, about your life, about your food, like nothing about that is acting. And over the years, like not just in this instance, but like from the first day I started counseling someone, you know, even now, every time that I am telling someone how awesome they truly are and how appreciative of their body they are, it impacts my body image. The more I can say that to other people and truly believe it, the more I believe it for myself and the more secure I am in my own body. And I would like to even say like a couple of years after that, so I think it was 2017, I was in the musical Gypsy as Gypsy Louise. So I played a stripper and I was literally on stage in my underwear, again, at one of the highest weights I've been at. And that was like me like coming out as like body confident, right? It was, yes, I'm nervous because I am taking my clothes off in front of people and everyone's probably gonna be nervous about that. But like I had enough certainty in my own body, confidence that I was okay doing that. And even though my body is not, you know, quote unquote perfect, I'm definitely not a model. I wanted to be real and I wanted people to see like you don't have to look like a model to do these roles. I want anyone to feel comfortable doing that if that's something that they want to do. I'm not saying everyone needs to strip. I wouldn't take up stripping as a profession, right? But like in
I'm
the
so
context
glad
of
you're not
musical
telling us that.
yeah, in the context of musical theater, like it was a bucket list role for me. And my body confidence was so good during and after that show. And the compliments I got from people, not necessarily about my body, but about the fact that I could never do what you did. I can't believe you went up there and did that. You look so great, but I can't believe you did that because I could never do it. And like, why not? It's like, for me, it's like people not wanting to put on a swimsuit and go to the beach. Like, I know, so, like, I'm not a beach person, but there's so many people who love going to the beach and they won't go, or the pool or whatever, and they won't go because they don't want to put on a swimsuit in front of people. I'm like, if you love something, the attire should not hold you back. Your body should not hold you back from that. You should do what you want to do. So for dancers, being in a leotard, being in a costume, if you love it, that should not hold you back.
Preach it, girl. Preach.
Yeah.
So let's keep going with that. What would you say to a dancer who was where you were, wanting to fit in, wanting to be part of something, everyone else is doing stuff around them? What would you say to that person?
Well, my cheeky answer is, if everyone was, jumping off a bridge, would you follow them?
That is a pretty cheeky answer.
It is the cheeky answer because
no one's jumping off a bridge today.
You gotta do what feels right to you, right?
Yes.
And I think this in the performing art, I'm going on a tangent before I get back to your answer. Like in the performing arts, there's not a ton of research on eating disorders and nutrition, particularly among musical theater, but whether it's
Right.
dance or musical theater, there is a lot of research papers on like drug and substance abuse in the theater industry. So like a lot of people, like their socializing is drinking and smoking and, you know, drug use and stuff. And
Right.
we're not even talking about the fact that eating disorders are so much more prevalent than that stuff, I would say, or at least diety-ness, whether or
Oh
not
yeah.
it's full-blown eating disorder. There are other ways to fit in. There are so many other ways that you can connect with your fellow cast. And I mean, if that's all you have to fit in with them, is that the people you really want to be spending, or is that really what you want to be spending your time on? People you want to spend
Mm-hmm.
time with? Like, there are other cast members who are not doing those things. And I will say that as someone who has now been a part of many, many shows and dance classes and found the people that are not talking about food, that are totally on body confidence, that will go out and get dessert with you, who are, you know, just having fun. Like I just met a really great new bestie in this last show, and we're talking about like memes and that we watched Downton Abbey as our like downtime. Like we're
Isn't
not
there so
talking
much
about
more to
life.
life? Like
There's
there's
so
so
much
much
more to
more
life.
to us than talking about our bodies and talking about what we eat and focusing on those things. Find those people that just have all of those other conversations, because you know, um, it's hard, especially in the theater and the performing arts world. You're saying there's it's pervasive,
Mm-hmm.
but there are people that are healthy and balanced and have a good relationship with their body. And so, you know, and it sounds like you at the time had the strength that you were able to say, I don't want that for me. I want
Yeah.
this. I want recovery. I want wellness. I want to feel good in my body. You know why? Because I deserve that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and then so do you. So does every performer. And body
Oh,
confidence looks so good on stage.
the other thing I just thought of,
Yeah.
I hadn't, I guess it makes total sense. I hadn't put it together yet with that diet. I felt myself getting less and less confident as it went, which I
Deceiving,
think
isn't
is, I
it?
mean, it's so common, but I think we forget that. Like
Yep.
we start this thinking that the diet is going to make us feel stronger, more confident, more body confident. And in reality, it made me feel less, it felt me, it made me feel really shaken, right? It like, it shook my beliefs. It shook my confidence in myself. It made me feel awkward eating at work, like
Yeah.
things that I don't need to feel on a daily basis.
Yeah. That's
So
and you
nothing about that was useful to me. I distinctly remember like a year later throwing that book in the trash can. Because
good
I was
for
like
you.
thinning out my library, and I'm like, oh yeah, never doing that again.
Yeah.
I'm like,
And
this does
recovery
not go in the
teaches
little
us
free libraries. This does not go to the Goodwill. This goes in the trash
no.
can.
This goes to no other person. And
Yes.
recovery teaches us that we can choose and we can practice little by little, building the strength so that when we get to the point where we have to make those tough decisions, we can choose, you know what, this isn't for me. No thanks. I'll pass. And usually, what diets are selling, it's a complete lie.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my eating disorder was a lie. It would say, you know, if you just lost this amount of pounds, then you'd be happy. I'm like, okay. So then I would do that and I go, okay, why do I hate myself more now than I ever have when you promised that it would be better? And so that's where the deception lies. And it's a slippery slope. It's really hard to fight against it. But your story proves that it's possible.
Yeah.
It's possible for performers. And I believe that dancers and performers have a lot more inner strength than they realize.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot
And
of resilience and tenacity in having come from that training. I mean, not only are you on your feet for long hours and, you know, one more time is never one more time, so you get used to that. You're dealing with criticism, you're dealing with rejection, all of that stuff. So if you can handle all of that, you can handle smashing down diet culture.
and turning that commitment, because it's very difficult. It takes a lot of hard work to stay in a diet, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to be tunnel vision and you have to, you know, kind of like try to ignore everything else in life and really focus in on this. So if we can flip that around and point our lens towards recovery and being free, that means we start to drown out the diet culture. We start to drown out this message and say, no, I want to focus on this because this is where I want to be. Right. And so, you know, we know there's stigma. We know there's kind of a taboo topic. This is one way to battle that, right? Having this conversation. Any other ways that you think that we can break through this stigma?
Well, I think sharing stories like this is super important. So I, of course, commend your works. You're always great at the story sharing and getting, I mean, if anyone here is watching this because you follow me, but you haven't followed Dancing with Ed and Amy yet, please follow her because this woman is a storyteller. We've done shows together. She created this really cool thing called Stages of Change where dancers got to dance out their recovery and addiction stories. More to come on that, I'm sure, but so cool. So you're doing a lot. So I need to keep sharing this stuff, but I think
you're not the average nutritionist. You are not the average nutritionist. Tell us how you are not the average nutritionist.
Well, it actually leads in really great to what I was just about to say as the other piece of, I think, hopefully preventing some of this is education and getting to people at an earlier age. So yes, so I'm a registered dietitian. I'm a certified eating disorders registered dietitian. That's my normal work. I own a group practice called Not Your Average Nutritionist, where we see people primarily for eating disorders in nutrition counseling one-on-one. But I am also the Broadway dietitian, and that is my sub-niche of working with performers. And in particular, I'm through all of this, and perhaps this now, like, it's so funny in hindsight, like putting the pieces together. Maybe this story, this theater experience was kind of the initiator for what I'm about to talk about, because it also was when a lot of people were like, oh, you're a dietitian? Like, I don't know what to eat for these rehearsals, so I have energy, or I'm running straight from work to rehearsal. What do I do when all I have time for is grabbing McDonald's? Like, is that okay? And like, I was getting all these questions, and I think all of that experience, particularly coming from this show and then everything that's happened since, was a big instigator for me to want to help performers really figure out true evidence-based science for their health so that they're having energy for long rehearsals and show days and all the things they need to do to optimize their performance in a healthy, non-disordered way. So what I do with performers now, I have an online class called Whole Health for Performers, which goes into topics of nutrition, eating disorders, exercise and cross-training, mental health, addictions, all that kind of stuff, as kind of a general overview of how to take care of yourself, including like how to avoid digestive issues on stage, vocal health, that kind of stuff.
Oh, those are the worst. You don't want to have digestive issues on stage.
Yeah, and fun bonus, if you take that course, you get to see some really embarrassing photos, or I think at least one embarrassing photo of me backstage during Gypsy when I almost had heat stroke. So
I'll have to check that out.
Sign up now to get that embarrassing photo of me.
Woohoo!
Because I've learned a lot in my time, but what that's also prompted is now I actually go and speak to performing arts programs, so BFA programs, conservatories, about, I have a signature talk, Nutrition for the Theatrical Student. So how to actually take care and fuel your body for the stage, not falling into diet traps, but actually feeling really good in your body and fueling. I'm also working on a college curriculum for BFA programs that hopefully will get our pilot program. I'm in talks with the school right now. Hopefully next year we'll start that as a 1-credit class. And I am working on a book that will be both the textbook for that and a freestanding text for health for performers. And I have information about that up on my website, thebroadwaydietitian.com, if you're interested. I have a read the unfinished manuscript as I write it program. So if people want to start getting that info as I go, or contributing ideas of things you want to see in the book. Actually, after this last theater experience, something that I completely had forgotten about that I know I need to add into the book now is talking about taking care of your body on tour. Things that aren't really talked about, because I think we can talk a lot about rehearsal days, but when you're not living at home, when you maybe don't have a kitchen, when your life is kind of in flux, how do you actually take care of it? So that's going to be part of it. I have a blog post and a section of the book on talking to costumers when you're dealing with an eating disorder or body changes or don't want to know your measurements, how to really navigate all of that. So it's going to be a really practical guide for anyone in the performing arts, anyone who is on or involved with the stage, on how to take care of your instrument.
So my next question is, when do you sleep?
Well, since I've had COVID, I've been sleeping about 16 hours a day. So
You're catching up now.
Yeah. No, sleep is actually one thing I do not. Sleep is something I don't compromise on. Other things might not get done, but I am very cranky if I don't sleep. So I always get at least 8 hours of sleep a night.
That's awesome. So what are other ways that you're taking care of yourself right now besides sleep?
Hydrating a lot, lots of water. I mean, I eat consistently and practice what I preach. So
yes,
snacks and meals and all of that lovely stuff. Taking time for things that bring me joy. So I am very privileged that I work for myself, and with the exception of clients and deadlines, a lot of my things are pretty flexible, which is great for my lifestyle, both performing and having a kid and all of that. So I get to some extent intuitively work. So like last night at like 8 p.m. I was working on a project, but during the day I was taking a nap because I was feeling sick. And so I have a lot of flexibility, which I think is really helpful. And I make sure I make time for things that bring me joy, such as performing, voice or dance classes, watching TV. I read novels as like the way to turn off my brain at night. Like I am always finding, I know I can't push myself to the limit or I will break.
I've seen you do that before. I've seen you, when you were on my board and you'd show up to board meetings and I'd be like, are you okay? Like, you're like,
oh,
I'm not good.
I am learning how my body works, and it is a lifelong learning process. I am not perfect, and I'm never going to be. And I will push myself too much at times, and I think we all have seasons. But this last year, I was definitely pushing myself too much, and I had a full vagal response panic attack. And that was when I knew, like, this is my body asking for a break. And I had to give myself a hard break. And that's really, it's difficult when you are a very driven, I call myself a recovering perfectionist, a perfectionistic driven person that always has to be doing something. It's hard to tell yourself to take a break, but I knew if I didn't, it was only going to get worse, and I didn't want to keep having these panic attacks. It didn't get to happen the next day because of course I had stuff planned, but I made sure like within that week I was able to take a couple days like as off as I could. So I'm getting better with setting boundaries, which is really hard for me.
It's and you're a great role model for a lot of performers and dancers who are driven and perfectionists. I can relate to that as well. And sometimes we can be our own worst enemies. And so just showing us that as a professional, you're able to really stay connected with your body, listen to its signals. We're in Mental Health Awareness Month. So a lot of people are talking about their mental health and the fact that it's just like their physical health. We have to take care of our brain. It's an organ. It can get stressed just like any other part of our body. So taking time for ourselves, eating right, fueling our bodies, prioritizing self-care. Any other suggestions?
The thing that I know like most quickly impacts my mental health is gratitude journaling. It's something that I keep trying to make a daily habit, and it kind of falls off the edge of the earth, but I know I feel better when I gratitude journal. So that's something I think is very accessible for everyone. You don't need anything fancy. You could do it just in your head, and sometimes I do if I'm really tired, but you could just take any old notebook, or you can get a special one and just write out at least 3 things a day you're grateful for. And that definitely makes me feel better.
That's a wonderful suggestion. There are a few places that you can go to connect with more resources, because I'm a huge fan of trying to get people plugged in to education and groups and anything else you might be looking for. So you can check out Not Your Average Nutritionist, also Broadway Dietitian, right? You're on
The
Instagram.
Broadway Dietitian, yeah.
The Broadway Dietitian.
Yep.
Dancing with Ed's new site, if you haven't seen it, they did an excellent job making it look really, really good. So check out dancingwithed.com. Go to the mental health page. I list, I think, 4 of the top national mental health organizations that are very trusted. Hotlines are on there for anyone who's just not feeling well and you're like, you know what, I really want to talk to somebody today. There's the resource page where I break down where there's apps, recovery apps, there are articles, there is, nutrition. So if there's anything that you're looking for that you're not finding, send us a message, send Libby a message, and she'll be happy to direct you in the right way. You have a new dietitian coming on next month. I'm really excited for you for that. She finds the most incredible people. So don't miss out on all the wonderful things that she's doing. And is there anything else that you wanted to share today, Libby?
I think for anyone who is listening and resonated with any of this but not really sure where to start, like, don't be afraid to reach out for help. It's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. Don't be afraid to, if it's calling a hotline, if it's talking to a friend, if it's finding a professional therapist, dietitian, talking to your doctor, like whatever it is for you, take that first step. It's so important. And yeah, we're here with education and resources for you. So please don't be afraid. Like, even if starting that conversation is just DMing one of us to say, like, this is what's happening, what do I do? We're here for you. Like, we want you to do well. We want you to have the best quality of life and the best performances of your life. So don't wait.
Absolutely. It's so rewarding. And don't let the world rob you of your joy and of what theater and dance and performing does for you. Because everyone deserves to have that full experience and walk away feeling like more connected to not only themselves, but what they do and new friends like you were able to do. Even if you didn't make it to the actual show itself because of the Rona, you were able to take and the gratitude, I can hear that kind of coming through with what you took from that. So, thank you again for sharing that story that I think we don't hear enough. The professional that still, kind of gets pulled in. We slip back, and that is okay in a sense that we all have permission to just be human. And it is a lot of pressure out there right now to focus on body and to do all those things. But it's just, speaking from personal experience, it's just not worth it. Yeah.
Agreed. I have a feeling Instagram is going to cut us off because it's been an hour. So
it's been an hour, and Instagram's like, forget it, ladies. Move on.
Well,
Move on.
Thank you.
It's so wonderful talking to you, Libby. Thanks everybody for tuning in. And this is going to be up on our YouTube channel tomorrow.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks, Amy.
Bye.
Bye.